Let's bring in our political contributor, Chris Uhlmann, for the first time of the year. Chris, great to see you. Welcome back onto Newsday. And what a time to be covering politics. The centre-right of Australian politics imploding right now.
Yeah, and implosion is exactly what it is. People are talking about cycles and they've seen bad cycles before. This isn't a cycle, this is a rupture. We're seeing a complete realignment of what's happening in the conservative side of Australian politics at the moment. And, you know, the last time I can think of when it was this dire for a political party would probably be the split in the Labor Party back, you know, when the DLP kept the Labor Party out of government for 23 years, and they are on track for that kind of stay out of government if they continue the way they are at the moment. And I actually can't see how they turn it around simply by changing from Susan Lee to Angus Taylor.
There's a bit of irony here, isn't there, when we go back to the language and we know the motivation. Prime Minister Albanese, he says he wants to make Labor the natural party of government. Well, the opposition's doing a good job in helping them
They seem
achieve that goal.
determined to make sure that that is the case. And on the trajectory that they are on, this isn't as bad as it can possibly get. And you would think in polling terms, you know, getting down to 19% primary vote. They were on 31%, which was catastrophic. They cannot win an election unless they're up near 40% of the primary vote. And we're seeing this bleeding to One Nation, which has clearly completely spooked the National Party. They are responding to what they're seeing in the polls and what they're hearing in the bush. And from what I can gather from the Labor Party, who's polling for the South Australian election at the moment, that the One Nation is out-polling the Liberal Party in the rural seats in South Australia. So we will actually get a measure of what's going on in the real world at that election.
Yeah, that's the key, isn't it? To see what happens. We've seen them win seats before, like in Queensland at the state level and certainly at the federal level in the Senate. If they start to pick up seats elsewhere, like in South Australia, then we know it's game on.
And the other thing too, is, and you can see this from the outside, but talking to people about this, is One Nation is now organised, which is something that they have lacked in the past. You can see it in the announcement of Corey Bernardi before the election, the discipline around that. They are trying now to get candidates from around the country. They are actually vetting those candidates properly for the first time. They are raking in millions of dollars in donations right now. So they are cashed up and preparing for the next federal election.
We noticed at the end of last year and reported in various places the polling that said 1 in 4 Gen X males were voting One Nation. Now it's 1 in 4 voters are looking to One Nation. And I guess part of it is, Chris, if they can shore up some of that credibility in terms of the operational structure and so on. You've got Barnaby Joyce, a veteran, maverick, but certainly super experienced. If you get enough of that reassurance to voters, there is an element of the vote as well here that says, we're over the establishment. I'm happy to vote for the loose candidate or the maverick. Within reason, they're happy to go along those lines.
And the other thing that they will be doing too is to look to what Reform has done in the UK, and what we saw there was a series of defections among the Conservatives to Reform. They're trying to dress up Corey Bernardi as that. Of course, Corey's had several iterations. He's been out of the Liberal Party for a while, trying to set up his own Conservative Party, but still seen as coming from that pedigree. Yeah. So we'll see more of that, and I think it'll be stretched out over time. And you think about it now, they've got Pauline Hanson in Queensland, they've got Barnaby Joyce in New South Wales, they've got Corey Bernardi speaking for them in South Australia. You start getting people in Victoria and New South Wales who are credible and known voices, and then you really start to become something of a force. So that would be concerning me if I was in the coalition at the moment, apart from the fact that now there are options on both sides of the Liberal Party, which is the Teals to their left and One Nation to their right. Yeah. And the National Party running scared particularly of One Nation.
Yeah, and this immediate crises that we're looking at in terms of the split, rapprochement or not, looks like probably not at the moment between the former coalition partners and all over those 3 shadow ministers. The leader wants them to have a 6-month suspension. The Nats aren't going to cop it. So that's not a policy issue, it's not an ideological issue, that's simply a job issue.
Well, look, it's all based around personalities, isn't it? A lot of this stuff is. The other thing too is that don't forget the Liberal Party is now divided right down the centre, and the right of the Liberal Party would appear to be divided as well. So the fractures run all the way to the bottom of the base of this statue, which is built on feet of clay at the moment, and they have to get back to basics. And it's a long, hard slog, and I don't know that the change of leader is going to help them. What they need is some strong policy positions and to take some difficult positions and to prosecute them. And it is not as if the government hasn't given them a welter of opportunities, like, for instance, believe it or not, there was an increase in interest rates yesterday.
Yes, indeed. So the government should have been on the back foot yesterday. They weren't because of the lack of cohesion, the lack of coordination and discipline, as you would expect with two parties that have fractured now.
And you see it in the House of Representatives, right? So there's no coordination.
The government enjoyed themselves.
Yeah. And there's no, on a day where they should be under pressure. And don't forget now with the split that you've got between Liberals and Nationals, with the questions being shared around of the Teals and the Greens, mostly the government is being asked to be outbid on the left. How can you spend more money, Mr Treasurer, at a time when people should be demanding that we pull spending in? There is a direct line between the fact that 1 in 4 of every dollar spent in the Australian economy at the moment comes from the Australian Federal Treasury, and much of it is borrowed. You know, maybe there was a feather that fell from the private sector onto the back of all that spending, which was the reason why the Reserve Bank put up interest rates yesterday. But the fact that government spending is driving this is beyond question. The real fear I have now too is that this government believes its own BS, that it actually believes the things that it's telling us, and it thinks that we are mugs and that there is no one to call them on this game.
There's talk of a reform budget. Let's see what happens, because we saw the Prime Minister mention it in caucus this week. The Treasurer's used that language. This will be a reforming budget. Paul Erickson, the National Secretary of the Labor Party, in a profile in the AFR at the weekend, spoke about this being a reforming budget. Let's see how far they lean in. They need to. They've got to be brave right now.
But they need to lean on spending cuts, right? So we're talking about capital gains tax increases, and there may well be a good reason to do that, right? And we're talking about getting some money back from defence. Okay, that'll be in the billions of dollars. We are heading towards $1 trillion worth of debt, and the plug and play increases that we have now locked in the NDIS, which you can't get control over, on, you know, uncapped childcare. So we're going to be funding the childcare of millionaires. This stuff is the stuff that will break the back, and one day somebody pays. You want to talk about intergenerational equity? One day, some government is going to have to make massive cuts or increase taxes. There is no other way to get back the kind of money we're talking about. And at some point, we pass the point of no return. And we might be getting very close to that right now.
Chris Uhlmann, great to see you as always.
Thanks, mate.